Hi, thanks for joining me today. We are going to do two movements that can be helpful if you have tightness and tension in your lower back, or if you struggle to follow the motion of your horse at the canter. And that is me. I struggle to do that. And I have had tightness and tension in my lower back for years, and even wore a back brace at times when riding, which really inhibited the movement of my back. So this simple movement down on the mat and then a standing move can help you find those muscles that might help if you have tightness or tension in the lower back, or to improve your seat at the canter. So we're going to come into a position on our backs to start with. So come down onto your mat with the heels just a little in front of the knees, hands down by your side. Find a neutral position here. So feel the heaviness of your head on the mat. Feel the heaviness of the shoulders, and feel the pelvis, your hips resting on the mat. And in this position, if you think of a neutral position for your spine, you should have a little gentle curve of your lower back away from the mat. Think like egg-shaped curve from your lower back away from the mat. And then as we exhale, we're going to think of lifting the tip of the tailbone up towards the ceiling as we flatten that lower back to the mat. And we're going to continue to think of pressing into the feet and lifting the hips up, and think of lifting the spine up one vertebrae at a time. As you do that, think of drawing the lowest ribs down. So we're really almost like doing a little crunch here, but we're not, and lifting the hips up slightly. And then think of lowering, you don't have to lift high, think of lowering back down one vertebrae at a time, coming all the way back down and to that neutral position. Again, it doesn't have to be a big movement. And if it helps you, you can even find the points of your hips where those hip bones stick up, and bring your fingers there, and think of the thumb coming around the back. And then as you exhale, again, think of letting the tip of the tailbone start to lift up and your lower back flatten to the mat, and then continue to press into the feet, lifting the tailbone and the hips up, and maybe again lifting up a little bit, segment by segment. And then really think of keeping those lowest ribs drawing down towards the hips, and those hips drawing up towards the ribs. Gently lower back down one vertebrae at a time, and come back to that neutral position. So do that a couple more times. This is a variation. It's a pelvic tilt and a little tiny low bridge that we do in yoga. So keep that going, just moving with your breath. And this, again, for me, is something that I have struggled with because of the tension in my lower back and my middle back. So really thinking of, imagine that you're lifting and lowering each segment at a time. So do that a couple more times, just moving with your breath, inhaling and exhaling. Again, it's not a big movement. And then the next time that you come back down, just find again that neutral position. Inhaling and exhaling, your arms come back down by your side. And then just very gently, let's come up to a seated position. So actually just you kind of crisscross the feet. You can take hold of opposite feet, give yourself a little rock up to seated. And then we're going to come all the way up to a standing position. So coming to a mountain pose, so from the front, feet hip distance apart. Think of aligning the bones of the legs and find those little points of the hips once again. Lengthen up through the crown of the head. And then if you think, actually bring the feet you start in that foundation, and then we're going to bring the feet just a little bit wider so we can bend the knees a little bit. Thinking here, almost like, for those of you who are equestrians, you kind of a longer leg position. If you're a dressage rider, this might be fairly familiar. If you're more of a jumper rider, then it's going to be a little long for, longer leg, but still that little bend of the knees. So we're going to think of that same movement. So think first, find a neutral position. So think of letting the tailbone drop down through the lowest ribs towards the hips, so find neutral. And then as you inhale, we're going to think of sending the tip of the tailbone back, the top of the pelvis, hands to the rib, hands to that rim of the pelvis, tips back. And then as you exhale, we do the opposite. Think of the tailbone curling under. So this is basically a standing version of cat and cow that we do on all fours, inhaling and exhaling. So this is the similar movement that we were just doing, but we have a little bit more range of motion now that we're standing. Inhaling and exhaling. Good. So again, do that a couple more times. So as your seat follows the movement of the horse and the canter, it should, this is that same movement. We're getting that flexion and extension in the hips here, our hip flexors. And again, if you're tight in the lower back like I am, that can be challenging. So this little sequence, practicing off this off the horse, hopefully is beneficial. So the other thing it really works is ankles too. So press into the feet, inhale, come all the way up, straightening the legs, and just do a little shake out of the legs. Good, come back to your mountain pose. Nice length in the spine. Find your breath. Inhaling and exhaling. So simple, quick, maybe not easy, not for me, but 2 exercises that you can do to kind of feel that natural movement. And as we think of, the riding, you're going to get the same, kind of going with the saddle kind of feeling, but it's the same idea, but a little bit more of a circular motion as we think of, following the seat of the saddle with our seat. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to see you sometime soon in the saddle or on the mat. Thanks. Bye-bye.